Picture a sprawling, invisible fire burning millions of miles above your resting head, waiting quietly in the freezing dark. Deep within this unseen realm, a ghostly halo of superheated plasma dances in the absolute vacuum of space, completely masked by the blinding glare of our familiar sun. It is a massive, shifting crown of energy that only reveals its breathtaking, terrifying scale when the natural order of the heavens is temporarily interrupted. Imagine an environment where the very definition of heat is entirely transformed from the heavy warmth we feel on Earth. Surprisingly, the universe hides a high-speed, ghostly furnace where warmth is born not from dense, oppressive air, but from the raw, silent momentum of microscopic particles flying through the void. This cosmic structure challenges everything we inherently know about the fires of our own world, offering a delicate, mathematical heat suspended majestically against the ultimate cold. If we were to look closer at the deep history of the night sky, we would witness a monumental, relentless act of ancient generosity. A luminous bridge of raw energy has stood firm since the dawn of the planetary system, tirelessly casting its own glowing substance into the empty, waiting gulf. This continuous, reaching exhalation has bathed our fragile, watery world in a protective, invisible sea of charged mist for longer than the human mind can truly comprehend. Notice the quiet, heavy comfort of the mattress supporting your resting body in this exact, tranquil moment. You are completely safe, firmly anchored to a peaceful room while the universe orchestrates its massive, silent symphony high above the clouds. These distant, sweeping wonders are yours to inherit as you sleep, a celestial lullaby sung in the language of pure light, ancient momentum, and enduring magnetism. The universe is preparing to show you its most closely guarded masterpiece as you drift further away from the waking world. It is a journey that begins with a sudden, breathtaking shift in the light we take for granted every single day. When the celestial machinery aligns perfectly, a profound secret is unveiled in the daytime sky. When the celestial machinery aligns perfectly, a profound secret is unveiled in the daytime sky. The familiar blinding disk of our star vanishes behind the silhouette of the moon, replaced by an awe-inspiring void of total darkness. In that fleeting twilight, a ghostly halo of plasma suddenly materializes against the blackened heavens. This ethereal manifestation is the corona, a deeply hidden layer of the solar atmosphere that usually remains entirely invisible to us. Washed out by the overwhelming brilliance of the photosphere, it quietly exists in plain sight, waiting for the briefest of moments to reveal its delicate architecture. The sudden appearance of this luminous crown often leaves observers entirely speechless, mesmerized by its sheer, unexpected scale. Woven from superheated, charged particles, this radiant mist defies the stark emptiness we typically associate with deep space. It forms a dynamic, breathing aura that completely envelops our home star in a delicate embrace. Witnessing this hidden structure firsthand transforms our fundamental understanding of the sun, changing it from a static yellow sphere into a complex, radiating entity of staggering beauty. Far beyond the apparent hardened edge of the solar surface, the star continues to reach outward with invisible fingers of force. This luminous veil refuses to be contained by gravity, stretching boldly for millions of kilometers into the frigid, dark void of the solar system. It is a staggering expanse of matter that dwarfs the comparatively tiny worlds orbiting deep within its extended glow. Floating within this extensive domain, the density of the gas becomes incredibly low, yet its influence remains profoundly absolute. The extended reach of this wispy, glowing fog constantly interacts with passing comets and rogue asteroids. It serves as a gentle but persistent reminder that the true territory of our sun extends far deeper into the void than our eyes can naturally perceive. Relying on a breathtaking cosmic coincidence, we are granted a highly exclusive window into this atmospheric marvel. The moon, purely by chance, appears exactly the same size in our sky as the immensely larger but vastly more distant Sun. Only when this small, rocky satellite perfectly blocks the overwhelming glare of the solar disk does the hidden crown step out from the shadows. During those precious fleeting minutes, the sky plunges into a surreal twilight and temperatures perceptibly drop across the landscape. Suddenly, the glowing corona bursts into view, framing the pitch-black lunar sphere with a ragged, shimmering ring of pure pearlescent light. It is a rare, spectacular gift of orbital mechanics that allows humanity to witness such a closely guarded celestial secret. Long before the advent of modern spectroscopy and space telescopes, early skywatchers struggled to comprehend the fleeting apparitions in the eclipse sky. Lacking the tools to peer deeply into the physics of stars, ancient astronomers desperately sought logical explanations for the ghostly glow. They observed the ragged ring of light clinging to the dark edge of the moon and formed a fascinating, albeit incorrect, hypothesis. Many prominent thinkers of antiquity firmly believed that this luminous atmosphere actually belonged to our lunar companion rather than the distant Sun. They reasoned that the intense, scorching heat of the solar rays was boiling the surface of the moon during the alignment. This violent roasting, they theorized, caused massive, glowing exhalations of gas to erupt outward, creating the temporary shimmering halo. It was an elegant, poetic assumption that perfectly fit their Earth-centric understanding of the immediate cosmos. For centuries, the true nature of this spectacular phenomenon remained cloaked in these earthly misunderstandings and mythological interpretations. It took generations of relentless observation and the slow march of scientific inquiry to finally strip away the lunar illusion and reveal the true solar identity of the crown. Unlike the rigid, predictable rings of Saturn, this sprawling celestial crown is a living, breathing entity that refuses to hold a single shape. Its chaotic architecture is inextricably linked to the invisible, churning magnetic dynamo buried deep within the heart of the star. Over the course of an 11-year cycle, this magnetic heartbeat drives a dramatic, continuous metamorphosis of the surrounding plasma envelope. If we were to look closer at historical records, no two eclipses have ever presented the exact same atmospheric portrait. The magnetic field lines act as an invisible, shifting skeletal structure, dictating precisely where the glowing gas is allowed to gather and flow. As the internal magnetic tension builds, twists, and eventually releases, the outer visual manifestation dramatically follows suit. This constant state of flux transforms the space around the Sun into a massive, ever-changing canvas of astrophysical forces. Observers are entirely at the mercy of the star's internal temperament when trying to predict what the next eclipse will reveal. The dynamic, evolving geometry of the halo serves as a beautiful, terrifying reminder of the raw, untamed power seething just beneath the stellar surface. Periods of quiet rest within the star yield a remarkable, almost elegant order to the surrounding atmospheric chaos. When the Sun enters its calmest phase, known as solar minimum, the twisting magnetic fields simplify into a highly organized dipole arrangement. This subdued internal state profoundly alters the visual character of the glowing halo, pulling the chaotic tendrils into a sleek, streamlined configuration. During these tranquil years, the most brilliant concentrated regions of the glow are drawn tightly around the solar equator. Long, elegant equatorial streamers stretch outward like massive luminous wings extending into the darkness of the solar system. Conversely, the polar regions are swept relatively clean, characterized by short, fine magnetic bristles pointing straight out into the void. This structured appearance creates a striking visual contrast, making the star look almost like an enormous glowing bar magnet suspended in space. The serene geometry of the minimum phase offers astronomers a clear, unobstructed view of the fundamental underlying forces governing the atmosphere. It is a temporary period of breathtaking symmetry before the inevitable chaotic rise of the next violent cycle. Tranquility never lasts forever on the surface of a highly active main sequence star. As the internal magnetic dynamo winds itself tighter, the period of solar maximum begins to violently assert its chaotic dominance. The beautifully ordered equatorial streamers of the quiet years are entirely swept away by a sudden intense explosion of complex magnetic activity. Suddenly, radiant spikes of glowing plasma burst outward from virtually every conceivable latitude, ignoring the previous boundaries of the equator. The halo transforms into a jagged, spectacular starburst, a wildly unkempt crown of overlapping, heavily tangled streamers and towering loops. Sunspots erupt furiously across the underlying surface, anchoring these massive, chaotic arches of superheated gas that extend millions of miles high. This chaotic, spherical explosion of light creates the most visually arresting and dramatically complex eclipses for observers to witness. The entire atmosphere appears to be boiling over, violently shedding its perfectly manicured shape in favour of raw, unrestrained energy. It is during these turbulent peaks that the true, ferocious and wildly unpredictable nature of our local star is put on full, terrifying display. Despite representing the incredibly hot, sprawling outer layer of a blazing star, the light emitted by this halo is paradoxically weak. It is a gentle, fragile luminescence that struggles desperately to compete with the overwhelming, punishing glare of the inner solar system. In terms of sheer, measurable luminosity, the entire sprawling structure shines only about as brightly as a full moon hanging in the night sky. This surprising faintness is a direct result of the incredibly low density of the superheated gas floating within the region. There are simply not enough particles tightly packed together to generate the blinding, opaque brilliance we associate with the solar surface. Instead, the widely scattered atoms provide only a soft, ghostly illumination that requires the perfect dark canvas of a total eclipse to be appreciated. The sheer fragility of this light is what makes studying the outer atmosphere such a monumental, demanding challenge for astronomers. Specialized instruments called coronagraphs must be meticulously deployed in space just to artificially block the main solar disk and capture this incredibly dim signal. It is a whispered secret of light, hiding quietly in the deafening roar of the star's immense optical power. Words often fail to capture the subtle, profound beauty of the atmospheric glow when it is finally unveiled in the darkened sky. Those fortunate enough to stand within the path of an eclipse frequently struggle to articulate the exact shimmering hue of the halo. It is almost universally described as a deeply mesmerizing, iridescent pearly white, completely unlike any color produced by artificial means. This exquisite silken sheen seems to possess a surreal depth, as if it were spun from fine, luminous glass threads. The pristine whiteness stands in sharp, dramatic contrast to the absolute crushing blackness of the lunar disk blocking the center. Some eagle-eyed observers even note fleeting, delicate tinges of faint pink or cool blue shimmering softly within the brighter inner edges of the structure. The sheer, undeniable majesty of this pearlescent light has driven countless individuals to travel the globe, chasing the fleeting shadows of eclipses. It is a color that fundamentally bypasses logical scientific analysis, striking directly at a deep primal sense of human wonder. Staring into that shimmering white abyss leaves an indelible, permanent mark on the memory of anyone lucky enough to look upward. The mesmerizing glow we observe from Earth is largely an elegant, highly complex trick of scattered light. The extremely hot, fast-moving electrons suspended within the outer atmosphere act as millions of microscopic, incredibly efficient mirrors. They intercept the blinding, intense radiation pouring outward from the much cooler photosphere directly beneath them and deflect it into the surrounding void. This specific scattering process is responsible for producing the dominant, pearly white continuum that gives the entire halo its visual substance. The fast-moving nature of these tiny particles violently smears out the distinct, dark absorption lines typically found in normal solar light. What reaches our fragile eyes on Earth is a remarkably smooth, continuous spectrum, a deeply washed-out ghost of the sun's true brilliance. Ultimately, The breathtaking visual illusion we admire during totality is born from this chaotic, microscopic game of luminous pinball. The glowing crown is less of a solid, independent object and more of a dynamic, shimmering reflection of the star's own hidden power. It is a masterclass in cosmic optics, transforming invisible, supercharged dust into one of the most sublime and profound sights in the natural world. As that supercharged dust shimmers above the star, it is not merely suspended, it is preparing for a grand, inevitable departure. Deep within this seething atmospheric layer, a profound transformation occurs, birthing a phenomenon that touches every distant corner of our celestial neighbourhood. The glowing plasma, previously held in delicate balance, begins to find avenues of escape through the twisting magnetic architecture. The chaotic energy of the lower atmosphere acts as a massive, relentless forge, pushing matter entirely beyond the limits of stellar containment. Deep within the coronal architecture, the heat and pressure reach a critical threshold, overwhelming the immense gravitational pull of the heavy core. This invisible, turbulent region serves as the sprawling nursery for a continuous, outward-flowing current of highly charged matter. What begins as a localized swelling of hot gas soon organizes into a massive outgoing tide that washes over the entire system. The birth of this solar wind is a silent, ceaseless exhalation from the star, a constant release of overwhelming pressure into the surrounding void. It transforms the localized atmosphere from a captive, glowing crown into an ever-expanding, invisible sea of flowing energy. Stripped of their atomic bonds by unimaginable heat, individual protons and electrons engage in a dramatic, microscopic rebellion against their host. These tiny, charged fragments carry an immense amount of kinetic energy, buzzing with a frantic, uncontainable momentum that demands release. They violently detach from the heavy, anchoring grip of the star's immense mass, eagerly seeking the absolute freedom of open space. This mass exodus is not a chaotic explosion, but rather a steady, relentless march of subatomic pioneers venturing into the absolute dark. Unbound and highly energized, the particles begin to stream outward along the invisible, stretching highways of the star's dynamic magnetic field. They permanently leave behind the dense, boiling layers of their origin, embarking on a singular journey into the freezing, empty expanse. The sheer volume of this microscopic migration is almost impossible to comprehend, shedding massive amounts of stellar material with every passing moment. Yet, because the particles are so infinitesimally small and widely spaced, the resulting stream remains entirely transparent and completely ghostly. It is a mass evacuation on a stellar scale, fundamentally draining the very substance of the star over vast cosmic epochs. Once finally free from the gravitational tether, this river of plasma accelerates to terrifying, almost incomprehensible velocities. This continuous exhalation does not merely drift, it violently surges outward, quickly surpassing staggering mind-bending speeds. It becomes a roaring, invisible gale, tearing through the inner solar system with a ferocious, silent intensity that defies terrestrial understanding. As you rest there, feeling the steady rhythm of your own slow, relaxed breathing, consider the violent, ceaseless breath of our star. Your chest rises and falls in absolute peace, a stark contrast to the raging supersonic hurricane roaring high above the planetary orbital plane. Allow the quiet stillness of your immediate physical surroundings to safely anchor you against the dizzying, unimaginable speeds of that cosmic exhalation. Moving outward from the chaotic inner planets, the fierce subatomic gale begins to gently expand and thin out over tremendous volumes of space. Surprisingly, the vast, seemingly empty universe around us is not a true sterile vacuum, but is completely filled with this pervasive breeze. It touches every object orbiting within our neighbourhood, wrapping the entire system in a tenuous, electrically charged mist. This gentle, continuous bath of particles dictates the environment of everything from massive gas giants to tiny, drifting specks of primordial dust. The solar wind entirely defines the weather conditions of interplanetary space, creating a dynamic ocean through which all celestial bodies must constantly swim. Even in the deepest, darkest pockets of our planetary system, the subtle, invisible influence of the star's outgoing exhalation is always felt. We frequently imagine outer space as a perfectly sterile, silent void, safely isolated from the fiery, chaotic surface of the host star. In reality, we are continuously submerged directly within the extreme outer edges of the star's sprawling, constantly expanding atmosphere. The dark space between the orbiting worlds is vibrantly alive, constantly humming with the steady, invisible flow of our host star's ancient vital breath. Despite travelling at supersonic, mind-bending speeds, the journey across the sheer vastness of the inner solar system requires considerable, measurable time. It takes several full planetary rotations for these freshly escaping particles to finally cross the immense dark gulf separating us from the core. This multi-day transit highlights the staggering, humbling distance that physically isolates our delicate, watery world from the raging inferno of the stellar surface. During this long, silent voyage, the plasma stream gradually cools and spreads, slowly losing the initial searing intensity of its violent birth. By the time it approaches our local orbit, the fierce, uncontainable hurricane has softened into a steady, persistent brushing force. It sweeps against the outermost layers of our planetary magnetic defences, like a relentless, invisible ocean current washing against a deeply submerged coral reef. The particles that gently collide with our protective magnetic shield today were actually born in the chaotic, boiling atmosphere many days prior. This delayed physical interaction means we are constantly experiencing the historical echoes of the sun's past, turbulent temperament rather than its current state. We comfortably exist in a delayed reality, feeling the distant, softened touch of a massive storm that has long since abandoned its violent origin. Pushing ever outward, past the massive gas giants and the icy realms of the outer system, the ceaseless breeze eventually begins to wane. The boundary where this mighty wind finally encounters the dense, cold resistance of the interstellar medium marks a profound, critical cosmic frontier. Here, the outgoing plasma abruptly slows down, piling up and compressing tightly against the ambient ancient gas of the wider swirling galaxy. This massive, turbulent collision zone acts as a staggering invisible wall, carving out a colossal protective bubble around our entire stellar neighbourhood. The heliosphere, as this vast protective shield is known, forcefully deflects the harsh, highly energetic cosmic rays that constantly rain down from deep space. It serves as a necessary overarching shelter, safely cocooning the planets and their fragile orbiting ecosystems from the far harsher galactic environment outside. Let your shoulders drop slightly, appreciating the quiet safety of the room around you, intimately mirroring the vast, sheltering bubble of our solar system. Your physical comfort and safety in this exact moment are indirectly protected by that distant, invisible barrier actively holding back the harshness of the wider galaxy. The star not only provides necessary light, but actively physically guards its orbiting children with its own, far-reaching outward breath. Varying currents within this vast invisible ocean do not flow at a uniform pace or carry the exact same subatomic density. The fastest, most aggressive streams of plasma surprisingly originate from the darkest, relatively cooler regions of the sun's sprawling outer atmosphere. These gaping, shadowy voids, widely known as coronal holes, lack the closed magnetic loops that normally trap and securely hold the glowing gas in place. Without those twisting magnetic cages to restrain them, the agitated subatomic particles are given a clear, unobstructed path to directly escape. The magnetic field lines in these shadowy regions point straight out into the dark void, acting like massive open highways for the eager charged plasma. Consequently, matter accelerates violently out of these dark gaps, creating high-speed torrents that furiously race ahead of the surrounding sluggish currents. These fast-flowing rivers of charge periodically sweep across the inner planets, acting precisely like invisible lighthouse beams rapidly rotating through the dark space. When a high-velocity stream impacts a planetary magnetic shield, it suddenly triggers intense periods of dynamic, disruptive space weather. The shadowy, quiet-looking patches on the glowing star are ironically the direct source of the most forceful, aggressive gales in the interplanetary sea. In stark contrast to the blistering open highways of the dark voids, the highly active, densely populated regions of the star produce a remarkably different flow. The slow wind meanders outward from the violently twisting, magnetically complex equatorial zones, where massive loops of plasma constantly trap and tangle the escaping matter. Here, the rushing particles must violently navigate a chaotic, shifting maze of immense magnetic tension before finally managing to break free. This arduous, chaotic escape severely drains the kinetic energy of the departing plasma, resulting in a much more sluggish, heavy, and wandering current. The slow breeze carries a thicker, denser load of subatomic material, slowly drifting outward like a massive, heavily rolling fog bank. It actively creates a constantly shifting, heavily textured environment in the space directly surrounding the sun's fiery, chaotic equator. The inevitable interaction between the slow, heavy fog and the fast, aggressive streams creates massive, sweeping shockwaves throughout the entire solar system. As the fast rivers inevitably catch up to and violently crash into the sluggish, dense patches, swirling storms of compressed plasma are violently forged. It is a highly complex, beautifully chaotic interplay of differing speeds and varying densities, endlessly churning the invisible ocean of deep space. The true, staggering extent of this subatomic exhalation was a matter of pure theoretical speculation for many eras of modern astronomy. However, our distant, intrepid robotic emissaries eventually provided concrete physical proof of the wind's ultimate fading outward limits. Those silent probes, after long eras of lonely travel, actually felt the fading pressure of this outward breeze finally drop away into absolute nothingness. Their onboard instruments carefully measured the sudden dramatic shift in the surrounding plasma, accurately noting the abrupt disappearance of the familiar outbound solar particles. It was a profound, historic moment of absolute transition, marking the exact boundary where the star's dominant influence finally surrendered to the vast interstellar void. The delicate sensors detected a sudden influx of alien galactic material, confirming they had finally pierced the protective, outermost bubble. Notice the gentle weight of gravity holding your resting body securely in place, a localized, comforting force much like the localized influence of our star. Just as you're comfortably anchored here, those distant probes spent their entire functional existence securely anchored by the fading pressure of the solar wind until they finally slipped free. Their incredible, lonely journey accurately mapped the true physical edge of our cosmic home, drawing the outer limits of the sun's sprawling invisible territory. The most striking, highly visible evidence of this pervasive invisible storm comes to us in the form of wandering, icy visitors from the deep. As comets rapidly plunge toward the inner solar system, their frozen bodies violently boil, releasing massive, glowing clouds of ancient dust and ionized gas. We might naturally expect these brilliant trailing structures to simply follow directly behind the rushing, icy core like a wake behind a speeding boat. Instead, every comet tail is visibly, forcefully pushed completely away from the sun, regardless of which direction the icy rock itself is actually travelling. This beautiful, sweeping deflection is the direct physical result of the relentless oncoming blast of the invisible solar wind. The highly energized outbound plasma physically collides with the fragile glowing gas of the comet, violently dragging it outward into a long, brilliant streak. This majestic, glowing weather vane serves as a massive natural windsock, perfectly illuminating the invisible currents rushing through the otherwise empty, dark void. Even as a comet rapidly retreats back into the freezing darkness, its bright tail continues to stubbornly point forward, blown entirely by the star's ceaseless exhalation. It is a final, mesmerizing testament to the silent, invisible power that constantly shapes, sweeps, and physically defines the space between the worlds. This invisible power that physically defines the void does not simply drift without direction or purpose. It is intricately guided by a hidden, majestic architecture. Deep within the shimmering halo, an immense interwoven network of magnetic field lines acts as the true, rigid, skeletal structure of the entire stellar atmosphere. These fundamental forces construct a vast, ethereal scaffolding that definitively dictates every single movement of the charged particles suspended high above the roaring star. Without this unseen, commanding framework, the superheated gas would simply dissipate instantly into the cold vacuum in a chaotic, formless cloud. Instead, the intense magnetic tension carefully sculpts the volatile plasma, forcing the energetic matter to adhere strictly to the sweeping, gracefully curved pathways of localized polarity. It is a masterful, unseen architecture that brings profound, stunning physical order to an otherwise lawless, wildly boiling expanse of raw kinetic energy. This complex internal skeleton naturally remains completely transparent to our limited human vision, carefully hiding its intricate structural geometry behind the blinding solar glare. Yet, the immense, unyielding strength of these invisible threads is absolute, effortlessly capable of holding oceans of volatile matter suspended securely against the crush of gravity. The entire sprawling atmospheric envelope is essentially a captive, mesmerizing theatre, bound securely to the silent geometric dictates of this hidden magnetic framework. Fortunately, the wider universe provides a natural, brilliantly luminous tracer dye to slowly reveal this hidden structural majesty to our specialized spaceborne instruments. The captured, highly energetic, glowing plasma dutifully flows perfectly along the invisible magnetic tracks, effectively painting the unseen architecture in brilliantly vibrant, high-energy ultraviolet light. Wherever the hidden, tense scaffolding reaches, the superheated gas faithfully follows, violently transforming abstract physical forces into a vividly illuminated, breathtaking reality. By strictly observing these specific, highly energized wavelengths, modern astronomers can finally map the precise, sweeping contours of the stellar skeleton in actual time. The resulting stunning imagery beautifully resembles a delicate, glowing cosmic circulatory system, with vast rivers of bright energy throbbing steadily along elegantly sweeping, perfectly curved pathways. Every subtle ridge, deep valley, and violently twisted knot of the magnetic terrain is suddenly, starkly exposed by the radiant glowing matter, helplessly trapped securely within its grip. This beautiful, radiant illumination completely revolutionizes our entire perspective of the violent space immediately surrounding the raging stellar core. It dramatically changes the outer atmosphere from a blurry, indistinct white halo into a deeply textured, highly structured masterpiece of brilliantly illuminated physics. The superheated plasma acts as a faithful, relentlessly brilliant messenger, allowing us to visually trace the exact sweeping flow of immense physical forces that normally remain forever cloaked in total darkness. The most striking, universally recognized features of this illuminated, shifting landscape are the colossal, glowing arches that gracefully vault incredibly high above the chaotic surface. These towering, majestic structures, widely known to scientists as coronal loops, act as massive, flawless magnetic cages perfectly designed to securely trap and hold the volatile, searing gas. They proudly stand as breathtaking, monumental bridges of pure, flowing energy, securely anchoring their massive footprints to regions of intense, opposing polarity on the violently boiling crust far below. Unlike the brief, Fleeting, chaotic explosions constantly happening nearer the core, these magnificent soaring arcs often boast an incredible, highly surprising longevity. The immense, unyielding strength of the magnetic containment can successfully suspend the violently roiling plasma high in the freezing void for many consecutive days or even extended weeks. It is a truly stunning, prolonged display of sustained, perfect physical equilibrium, holding an absolutely unfathomable volume of superheated material in a delicate, extended state of completely calm suspension. Feel the steady, comforting stillness of your own hands resting gently beside you, perfectly mirroring the suspended, quiet patience of those massive, distant, glowing arches. Just as your resting body naturally finds a peaceful, sustained equilibrium in this exact quiet moment, those colossal magnetic bridges of plasma temporarily find a majestic, stable harmony against the violent vacuum. They quietly, patiently wait in the deep, dark expanse, holding their incredibly heavy, brilliantly luminous burden with absolute, unwavering structural grace. This majestic, arched stability is not always a simple, smooth curve of isolated, flowing energy perfectly bridging a single magnetic divide. Frequently, neighbouring loops are violently pushed and pulled by the deeply turbulent boiling forces churning violently in the dense layer immediately beneath their anchored feet. As the foundation aggressively shifts, these towering pillars of plasma are forced to violently interact, slowly crossing their previously parallel, elegant paths. Slowly, the invisible threads begin to actively wrap around one another, binding the glowing plasma into incredibly complex, tightly wound structures. They visually morph into massive, twisted cables, looking precisely like heavily braided, glowing ropes of pure, unadulterated stellar energy, suspended against the absolute black. The immense compounding tension contained within these thick, braided structures reaches unimaginable, terrifying levels as the twisting motion relentlessly continues. This complex braiding process dramatically concentrates the contained energy, creating highly volatile, immensely powerful regions of focused magnetic stress in the upper atmosphere. The intricately wound ropes visually showcase the sheer, terrifying mechanical power of the star's internal dynamo physically translating into the outer void. It is a breathtaking, terrifying celestial knot, holding an immense, coiled spring of raw power that cannot possibly remain tightly wound forever. If we were to look closer at the finest microscopic details of this coiled tension, a much more chaotic, violent reality suddenly emerges. The seemingly solid, glowing lines of force are not actually permanent structures, but are instead in a constant, frantic state of microscopic breaking and reforming. The immense, overwhelming pressure of the twisting geometry frequently forces the magnetic threads to their absolute physical breaking point. In a blindingly fast, totally invisible process known as magnetic reconnection, the strained, overloaded lines violently snap and instantaneously realign into newer, more relaxed configurations. It is a sudden, catastrophic structural failure on a subatomic level, instantly changing the fundamental underlying architecture of the entire suspended plasma cloud. This microscopic shattering and healing occurs countless times every single second, completely defining the true restless nature of the atmospheric canvas. The glowing gas caught within these snapping lines is violently whipped and aggressively redirected into totally new, radically different trajectories in a fraction of a heartbeat. This invisible, snapping friction acts as the ultimate unseen catalyst for nearly every single sudden, violent change observed within the stellar halo. The majestic, seemingly static loops are actually a grand, beautiful illusion, completely masking a furious, never-ending microscopic storm of snapping, realigning magnetic violence. This violent, microscopic snapping of invisible threads is far from a silent, purely structural realignment occurring harmlessly in the void. Every single time a twisted, braided magnetic line breaks and aggressively reconnects, it instantaneously converts an absolutely massive amount of stored pent-up tension into raw, searing heat. It is a violent, explosive release of trapped energy, violently dumping an unimaginable payload of thermal power directly into the already hot surrounding plasma. The sudden, catastrophic release of this thermal energy generates a massive, sweeping wave of intense warmth that violently echoes entirely across the underlying stellar surface. It acts exactly like a colossal, invisible sonic boom of pure heat rippling aggressively outward from the exact site of the snapping fractured lines. This relentless, widespread thermal shockwave actively contributes to the deeply profound, agonizingly high temperatures that permanently define the star's mysterious, sprawling upper envelope. These constant, invisible detonations perfectly explain how the sprawling outer layer violently maintains a temperature vastly hotter than the dense, boiling crust below. The endless snapping of tiny, microscopic magnetic ropes provides a steady, aggressive, and highly efficient heating mechanism for the entire vast region. It is a beautiful, deeply chaotic paradox, where constant, destructive, microscopic violence ultimately provides the sustaining, brilliant warmth of the entire colossal atmospheric crown. Moving outward from the tightly wound, snapping loops of the inner regions, the magnetic architecture takes on a much more elongated, sweeping and majestic form. Enormous, towering columns of plasma, widely known as helmet streamers, gracefully rise from the active latitudes, creating deeply impressive, massive teardrop-shaped structures. These colossal, glowing formations elegantly taper into long, incredibly thin and delicate spires that stubbornly point directly outward into the freezing, absolute dark of deep space. They are fundamentally constructed from closed, highly stable magnetic loops at their wide, anchored bases, which securely trap incredibly dense, brightly glowing gas near the surface. However, the extreme, crushing pressure of the escaping outward wind physically grabs the very peak of the loop, aggressively dragging the magnetic field lines outward into a sharp, pointed tip. This physical tug-of-war creates a stunning, highly visible boundary between the securely trapped glowing plasma and the violently escaping invisible breeze. Notice the gentle, rhythmic rising and falling of your own chest as you breathe, a small, subtle expansion that closely mirrors the massive outward stretching of these glowing spires. As you relax deeply into your immediate surroundings, your quiet stability gracefully echoes the anchored, heavy base of the streamer, while its tip tirelessly reaches into the unknown. These towering teardrop beacons serve as the grand, silent gatekeepers, marking the exact edge where the star finally surrenders its captive matter to the galaxy. The surface layer acts as an infinitely complex, heavily churning cauldron of superheated, bubbling plasma that constantly violently drags, shifts, and forcefully twists the deeply buried magnetic roots. It is this deeply buried, relentless mechanical churning that actively pumps the immense, terrifying kinetic energy straight upward into the delicate, stretching arcs of the atmospheric halo. Every graceful, sweeping curve of plasma seen high in the quiet void is directly authored by the violent, deafening chaos actively raging far beneath it. Without this deep, highly aggressive anchoring, the towering structural integrity of the entire extended atmosphere would instantaneously collapse and completely blow away in the outbound wind. The anchors are inextricably, permanently bound to the heavy moving mass of the star itself, perfectly transferring the deeply internal rotational energy into the sprawling external void. This deep, unbreakable connection elegantly ensures that the delicate, glowing crown always perfectly mirrors the restless, deeply violent mood of the heavy hidden core. When modern, deeply specialized instruments attempt to fully map this interconnected, sweeping geometry, they do not reveal a flat, easily digestible, simplistic portrait. Instead, our advanced sensors vividly perceive a truly staggering, overwhelmingly complex, and highly convoluted spatial maze of overlapping, violently clashing magnetic fields. It is a dense, heavily layered labyrinth of pure invisible force, possessing an intricate depth that entirely defies our basic earthly intuition. Lines of force continuously dive, sharply twist, aggressively cross, and completely wrap entirely around one another in a frantic, beautifully chaotic and never-ending celestial dance. Navigating this invisible, heavily structured web would be a mathematically impossible, terrifyingly complex endeavour for any physical object attempting to gracefully fly through the glowing mist. The deeply layered architecture constantly shifts and drastically completely redesigns itself from moment to moment, ensuring the sprawling, glowing maze is literally never the exact same shape twice. The sheer, mind-bending geometric complexity of this sprawling, ever-shifting web entirely dictates the deeply complicated, unpredictable path of every single charged particle daring to move within it. It is a profoundly beautiful, deeply mathematical puzzle, actively written in pure, invisible tension, suspended majestically against the crushing, empty black canvas of the solar system. Comprehending this dense, twisting labyrinth is the ultimate, incredibly difficult challenge for those striving to fully understand the true, hidden nature of our violently radiating host star. The staggering, unbelievable amount of raw, coiled power continuously stored directly within this twisting, heavily braided labyrinth represents much more than a merely beautiful static structural display. These intensely woven, highly stressed invisible threads actively serve as the primary, deeply silent engine driving the vast majority of all violently disruptive space weather. Every single catastrophic solar flare and massive sweeping eruption of plasma originates directly from the sudden catastrophic mechanical failure of this highly pressurized, twisting magnetic architecture. When the deeply coiled tension finally, inevitably exceeds the physical limits of the intricate shifting scaffolding, the resulting outward explosion aggressively shudders across the entire planetary system. The invisible, silent engine abruptly shifts from a state of quiet, majestic suspension to a terrifying, violent outward expulsion, actively hurling massive oceans of matter at the orbiting planets. Understanding the delicate, intricate weaving of these glowing threads is absolutely paramount for accurately predicting the deeply sudden, violent storms that constantly threaten our fragile, interconnected technology. Allow the steady, rhythmic beating of your own relaxed heart to deeply ground you as you silently ponder the sheer, terrifying magnitude of that distant, invisible, coiled engine. Your profound, immediate physical calm perfectly counterbalances the intensely violent, aggressively churning reality of that heavily tangled, deeply magnetic tapestry permanently hovering above our star. Though perfectly silent to our deafened earthly ears, the deeply stored energy in those sweeping, delicate lines forcefully writes the ultimate destiny of the entire sprawling cosmic neighbourhood. This sprawling cosmic neighbourhood remains forever bound to a secret that defies every common law of heat and distance we have learned on our own rocky world. While the magnetic threads define the shape of the void, they also conceal a profound thermal mystery simmering just above the visible, bubbling horizon of the star. It is a place where the basic logic of physics seems to invert, creating a landscape of blistering intensity that should not, by any standard calculation, be able to exist. Deep within this transitional realm, scientists encounter a puzzle that has challenged the greatest minds of our modern era. We expect the temperature of a fire to fade as we step away from the flames, yet here, the opposite occurs with a ferocious silent intensity. This hidden layer of the stellar atmosphere guards its heat like a jealous king, refusing to yield its secrets to those who look only at the surface. If we were to look closer at the boiling crust of the star, we would find a churning sea of plasma radiating at roughly 5,000 degrees. This temperature is certainly intense enough to vaporize any metal known to humanity. yet it is considered a modest, even cool, baseline for a celestial body of this magnitude. Surprisingly, as soon as we rise just a few hundred kilometers into the thin, wispy atmosphere, the thermometer begins a dizzying vertical climb. The transition is so sudden and extreme that the gas effectively ignentes into a state of matter far more energetic than the boiling surface beneath it. Suddenly the temperature rockets into the realm of over 1 million degrees, a staggering jump that creates a brilliant invisible halo of pure thermal power. This invisible furnace hangs suspended against the dark, providing a constant searing contrast to the comparatively chilly surface from which it supposedly draws its warmth. Surprisingly, the universe seems to ignore our earthly intuition regarding the simple flow of thermal energy in this specific region. Moving further away from the primary heat source of the stellar core strangely causes the ambient temperature to spike exponentially, rather than fade into the cold. It is as if you walked away from a roaring campfire and suddenly found yourself being scorched by a heat 10,000 times more intense than the embers themselves. This defiance of the inverse square law creates a thermal cliff that marks the true beginning of the outer atmospheric crown. This structure is not just a passive layer of gas, but a highly energized shell that maintains its blistering warmth through mechanisms we're only beginning to truly comprehend. It represents a fundamental fracture in our understanding of how stars manage their energy, turning a simple ball of gas into a complex paradoxical engine of light. Scientists suspect that the answer to this mystery lies in billions of tiny invisible magnetic explosions called nanoflares. These microscopic bursts of energy occur constantly across the entire surface, acting like a persistent high-frequency sizzle that pumps heat into the upper layers. While a single burst is small, the collective power of millions of these sparks occurring every second creates a steady, unyielding floor of intense thermal radiation. Another compelling theory suggests that the heat is delivered by rhythmic magnetic waves that ripple upward from the dense, boiling surface far below. These oscillations, known as Alfvén waves, travel along the magnetic field lines like vibrations on a plucked guitar string, carrying vast amounts of kinetic energy into the void. Upon reaching the thinner layers of the atmosphere, these waves break and crash with immense force, releasing their stored heat exactly like ocean waves shattering against a rocky beach. Imagine the rhythmic, soothing sound of the surf as it rolls in and out, a constant transfer of energy from the deep sea to the waiting shore. This structure of wave-driven heating creates a perpetual pulsing warmth that keeps the entire atmospheric halo in a state of high-energy agitation. The star effectively pumps its own mechanical energy into the sky, turning a simple magnetic vibration into a searing million-degree bath of pure plasma. Deep within this ferocious thermal bath, the very atoms of the star are pushed far beyond their physical breaking points. Common elements like iron find themselves stripped of over a dozen of their protective electrons, leaving them as highly ionized, glowing ghosts of their former selves. This extreme state of ionization is the primary reason the atmosphere glows in the specific haunting colors that we observe through our most advanced telescopes. The stripping of these electrons requires a sustained level of heat that is almost impossible to replicate in even our most sophisticated terrestrial laboratories. It transforms the gas into a highly conductive, electrically sensitive soup that responds instantly to every twitch and groan of the magnetic field. This chemical transformation is the ultimate proof of the paradox, a physical signature that reveals the true, blistering nature of the environment hovering above the star. This structure of extreme heat serves a vital purpose, as it provides the necessary pressure to prevent the atmospheric gas from settling back toward the surface. The million-degree temperatures act as a powerful inflationary force, pushing the plasma outward and keeping the entire crown forever expanded into the dark. It creates a state of perpetual buoyancy where the gas defies the immense gravitational pull that would otherwise cause it to collapse. Notice the effortless way your body remains supported by the surface beneath you, a quiet balance between your own weight and the steady floor. In a similar way, the outer atmosphere finds a majestic, stable equilibrium, held aloft by the invisible thermal hands of the heat paradox. This constant state of inflation ensures that the star's influence remains wide and reaching, providing the necessary volume for the solar wind to eventually find its path of escape. Exploring this paradox with our own eyes is fundamentally impossible, as the majority of this intense thermal radiation is emitted in a spectrum we cannot perceive. Our sun appears as a solid yellow disk because our vision is tuned to the light of the cooler surface, leaving the million-degree halo as a dark, invisible void to the naked eye. To truly witness the blistering reality of the crown, we must rely on satellites that can stare exclusively at the extreme ultraviolet spectrum. If we were to look closer through these specialized digital eyes, the star would be revealed as a terrifying, vibrant masterpiece of high-energy light. The invisible heat becomes a brilliant textured landscape of glowing filaments and searing arches, all pulsing with a light that carries enough energy to damage any unprotected organic tissue. These spaceborne observers serve as our proxy, translating the silent ultraviolet roar of the heat paradox into something we can finally visualize and study. This structure of low-density heat is one of the most difficult concepts for our human minds to grasp, as we are used to the thick conductive air of Earth. In the vacuum of the crown, you could be surrounded by millions of degrees of kinetic energy while still feeling the profound, icy cold of the deep cosmic void. It is a place where temperature and heat are two very different things, separated by the vast empty distances between individual high-speed atoms. Notice how the quiet stillness of your own room feels like a solid, singular environment, where every part of the air shares the same dense, familiar character. Far away in the stellar halo, heat is defined purely by particle speed, rather than the dense, burning sensation we feel when touching a hot stove or standing in the summer sun. The atoms are moving at hundreds of kilometers per second, possessing a violent kinetic energy that we categorize as high temperature. This kinetic velocity is the true essence of the heat paradox, a silent, invisible race of subatomic fragments through a nearly empty sky. It is a beautiful, mathematical definition of warmth that relies on motion and momentum rather than the heavy, oppressive heat of a crowded room. As you settle deeper into your rest, allow the realization of this high-speed, ghostly furnace to soothe you, knowing that the most intense heat in our solar system is also one of its most delicate and ethereal wonders. It is a beautiful, mathematical definition of warmth that relies on motion and momentum rather than the heavy, oppressive heat of a crowded room. As you settle deeper into your rest, allow the realization of this high-speed, ghostly furnace to soothe you, knowing that the most intense heat in our solar system is also one of its most delicate and ethereal wonders. Within that ghostly furnace of million-degree plasma, there exist islands of relative calm that challenge the surrounding ferocity with a stunning slow-motion presence. Deep within the searing reaches of the outer atmosphere, massive clouds of significantly cooler and denser gas float with a majestic, unhurried grace that seems entirely out of place. These dense accumulations of matter represent a strange homecoming of sorts, where the star's own substance gathers into heavy visible forms far above the burning horizon of the corona. They drift like colossal dark nebulae through the transparent brilliance of the atmospheric crown, creating a structural depth that defines the very edge of the sun. The presence of such relatively cold material in a million-degree environment is a testament to the complex, layered reality of the stellar atmosphere. While the surrounding space is a vacuum filled with high-speed particles, these clouds are packed with atoms that have managed to retain a sense of collective cooling structure. This existence creates a physical presence so massive that it seems to anchor the very sky, providing a rare moment of slow, visible majesty in a realm of invisible transit. Surprisingly, the universe allows these massive structures to exist in a state of tranquil suspension for incredibly long periods of time. While we might expect such islands of gas to be instantly torn apart by the violent magnetic storms and searing heat, They often hang peacefully for many months at a time. This longevity is a remarkable feat of physical balance, showcasing a side of the star that favours quiet stability over the sudden, explosive change of the lower layers. During these quiet eras, the prominence acts as a permanent fixture in the solar sky, a slow-moving monument to the star's underlying patience and structural endurance. This enduring presence allows for a complex internal life to develop within the cloud, as gas flows and churns in a never-ending cycle of replenishment and recycled energy. It is a living, breathing entity that survives by adapting perfectly to the invisible magnetic forces that attempt to pull it apart or drag it down. When these massive structures are viewed against the absolute velvety backdrop of deep space, they reveal a colour that feels both ancient and deeply comforting. They do not shine with the blinding white-hot intensity of the solar core, but instead glow with a soft, iridescent ruby-red light. This crimson hue is a specific chemical signature of cooling hydrogen atoms, vibrating at a frequency that allows us to see the exact, delicate shape of the gas suspended in the void. This ruby radiance paints the dark horizon of a total eclipse with fine, fiery brushstrokes that look like embers caught in a gentle cosmic breeze. It stands out like a brilliant jewel set against the pearly white of the surrounding corona, providing a vivid splash of colour in an otherwise monochromatic sky. The light is gentle enough to reveal the fine, hair-like filaments that make up the body of the prominence, showcasing a level of intricate detail that is usually hidden by the sun's glare. The glow is more than just a visual wonder. It is a physical bridge between the heavy star and the empty void, a manifestation of light finding its own unique voice. It creates a sense of warmth that is more visual than thermal, a glowing reminder of the star's fundamental composition and its ability to create beauty from raw energy. This structure of crimson light turns the edge of the sun into a blooming garden of fire, where every petal is a cloud of gas millions of miles long. This structure of suspended majesty is not a feat of magic, but is instead maintained by the incredible, cradling force of magnetic hammocks. The invisible field lines of the star curve and dip in specific regions, creating a valley of force that physically supports the immense weight of the cooler gas. These magnetic threads act like a soft, high-tension net, catching the falling plasma and holding it securely above the boiling surface with a resilient, invisible strength. If we were to look closer, we would see that these hammocks are constantly adjusting to the shifting weight of the gas they carry as it flows through the cloud. As more matter is drawn up from the surface, the magnetic lines stretch and sag, absorbing the pressure with a fluid and perfect grace. This dynamic support system ensures that the prominence does not simply crash back onto the surface, providing a stable platform for it to grow and evolve over many weeks. Notice the gentle weight of your limbs as they are supported by the surface beneath you, feeling the effortless way you're held in place. This sensation of being cradled is a direct earthly echo of the way those massive stellar clouds are held by their magnetic foundations in the sky. Just as you can trust the ground to support you without effort, these prominences rest in their magnetic nests, floating in a state of perfect weightless security. Eventually, the delicate harmony of the magnetic hammock reaches a point where the pent-up tension becomes too great for the structure to contain. The invisible threads that once provided a soft, cradling support begin to twist and snap under the growing weight and pressure of the accumulated plasma. In a sudden, spectacular shift, the quiet dance of the suspended cloud turns into a dramatic, high-speed eruption that shatters the silence of the upper atmosphere. The very foundation that held the gas in place for months suddenly becomes the catalyst for its violent, outward expulsion into the deep dark. This transition from peace to violence happens with a terrifying cinematic speed that defies the previous months of calm and stillness. The prominence is violently hoisted upward as the magnetic lines spring back with the force of a released bow, casting the ruby-red gas into the unknown. Matter that was once content to float in a stable arch is suddenly accelerated to millions of kilometers per hour, transformed into a weapon of pure light and energy. The eruption sends a massive shockwave through the surrounding corona, rippling outward like a stone thrown into a still glowing pond. In this single heartbeat of cosmic time, the star sheds its mask of patience and reveals the raw, unbridled power that fuels its very existence. Deep within the heart of such an eruption, a volume of matter so massive that it challenges our basic understanding of scale is cast off into the void. Billions of tons of superheated plasma and cooling gas are suddenly liberated from the star's gravitational grip, sent hurtling into the vastness of the solar system. This is a massive planetary-scale event that transforms a localized cloud into a sweeping outbound tide of material that defines the space between the worlds. The star is literally shedding its own weight, casting a piece of its heart across the dark distances to communicate with its orbiting children. This enormous payload of matter carries with it a significant portion of the star's magnetic energy, creating a travelling storm of immense and terrifying power. It moves as a single, cohesive entity at first, a massive wall of charge that pushes through the thin, outer layers of the atmosphere with absolute authority. It creates a beautiful, ethereal bubble of light that glows with the fading memory of its violent birth, stretching until it is almost invisible. Feel the gentle expansion of your own lungs as you take a deep, slow breath, sensing the way the air fills the space within you. This quiet internal expansion is a rhythmic earthly mirror of the way these stellar clouds grow as they venture into the deep, silent dark of the void. This expansion also causes the material to become increasingly transparent, allowing the light of distant stars to shimmer through its thinning, glowing layers. It moves like a giant ethereal jellyfish through a dark ocean, pulsing with an internal magnetic light that slowly fades as it spreads further into the planetary realm. By the time it reaches the outer planets, the once fearsome eruption has become a gentle, widespread mist that blankets the entire system in solar history. If we were to look closer at the sheer physical dimensions of a single prominence, the realization of our own insignificance would become overwhelmingly clear. A typical arch of gas can stretch for hundreds of thousands of kilometers, easily dwarfing our entire home planet several times over in a single curve. If Earth were placed beneath one of these glowing crimson bridges, it would look like a tiny, insignificant marble sitting under a mountain of fire. The scale is so vast that our entire history and all of our civilizations would be nothing more than a speck of dust within the shimmering filaments. This staggering scale serves as a reminder that we are guests in a solar system dominated by forces far larger than our own human imagination. The prominence is a playground for physics on a grand scale, where the smallest ripples are the size of continents and the largest arches span the void. Standing in the shadow of such a giant, one feels a sense of profound, quiet awe at the complexity and the magnitude of the universe. These structures do not exist for us, yet we are lucky enough to witness their existence from our safe, distant vantage point on a rocky world. They are the true masters of the solar sky, the heavy, glowing giants that define the visual landscape of our local and life-giving star. Capturing the slow, deliberate movements of these structures on specialized time-lapse footage reveals a fluid, almost hypnotic celestial ballet playing out in the dark. Over hours and days, the gas within the prominence can be seen flowing in complex winding rivers that follow the invisible curves of the magnetic field. It looks like a living waterfall of light, where the water is made of glowing plasma and the cliffs are made of pure, unseen force. Every movement is graceful and calculated, a slow-motion dance that plays out against the eternal, unchanging stillness of the distant stars. Notice the slow, steady rhythm of your own heart as it beats within your chest, a quiet dance of life that continues without your conscious effort. This internal rhythm is your own personal ballet, a steady flow of energy that sustains you just as the magnetic fields sustain the flowing gas. Even in their most violent and sudden departures, these structures maintain a breathtaking, highly organised beauty that reflects the underlying order of the wider universe. The eruption is not a messy or haphazard explosion, but a choreographed transition where every filament follows a specific, mathematical path into the dark. The resulting clouds of gas retain the elegant, arched signatures of the magnetic fields that birthed them, creating a structured ghost that haunts the solar wind. It is a final, majestic display of symmetry and purpose that persists even as the matter fades into the cold, distant reaches of space. This structured beauty is the ultimate legacy of the prominence, a proof that even the most chaotic events in nature are guided by a deeper sense of harmony. As the cloud drifts away, it carries the imprint of the star's magnetic heart, a physical memory of the foundation that once held it. The story of the dancing prominence is one of patience, power, and final, graceful liberation from the heavy chains of gravity. It begins as a quiet, ruby-red island in a million-degree sea and ends as a massive translucent traveller among the wandering planets. Through every stage of its life, it remains a pillar of light and structure, a breathtaking wonder that defines the very essence of the crown. The essence of this crown is not merely a visual or thermal wonder, but a profound acoustic landscape that exists where we might expect only silence. While space is famously a vacuum that cannot carry mechanical sound waves as we know them on Earth, this dynamic region produces a vibrant, complex symphony of radio emissions. These electromagnetic pulses are the star's way of communicating through the void, bypassing the need for a dense atmosphere to carry its rhythmic messages and allowing the corona to speak to the planets in a voice made of pure radiation. If we were to perceive this realm with our ears rather than our eyes, the corona would reveal itself as a dense and heavily textured wall of sound, pulsing with an internal logic that defies the stillness of the deep dark. This invisible symphony is generated by the constant high-energy movement of charged particles as they interact with the sun's overwhelming magnetic influence, turning the entire atmospheric shell into a radiating instrument. Every twitch of a magnetic field line and every sudden surge of plasma creates a ripple in the electromagnetic field that travels outward as a radio signal, carrying the story of the star's internal movements across the vast distances of our solar system. It is a constant, never-ending broadcast from the heart of the star, a celestial transmission that contains the raw data of every event happening within the atmospheric halo and serves as a bridge across the silent gulf of space. To understand the corona is to realize that we are living next to a massive radiating transmitter that fills the planetary system with its own unique and powerful resonance. Surprisingly, this electromagnetic activity provides a bridge across the silence of the vacuum, allowing us to interact with the star on a fundamentally different sensory level and revealing a hidden layer of vitality that visual observation alone could never capture. Within these radiating layers, sweeping electron beams act as invisible bows across a massive celestial string instrument that spans millions of miles. As these high-speed particles spiral through the dense and twisting magnetic fields of the corona, they create rhythmic, fluctuating signals that astronomers translate into melodic whistles and haunting, elongated swooshes. This auditory transformation reveals a hidden layer of the crown's personality, one that speaks in a language of frequency and resonance rather than just heat, light, or the movement of massive plasma arches. These sounds represent the physical motion of matter on a scale so vast that it dwarfs any earthly orchestra, a performance that has been playing without interruption since the very birth of the sun. The variety of these sounds is a direct reflection of the chaotic and diverse environment from which they originate, with each individual beam of electrons acting as a unique soloist in the solar choir. Some whistles are sharp and fleeting, marking the sudden snap of a magnetic line, while other swooshes are slow and rhythmic, following the graceful arc of a plasma loop as it meanders through the void. It is a deeply layered and intricate composition, where every individual electron contributes its own tiny vibrating note to the overarching melody of the stellar atmosphere. When shifted into the range of human hearing, these signals sound surprisingly organic, reminiscent of wind moving through a high canyon, or the complex, echoing calls of deep-sea creatures. This auditory translation provides a unique and powerful way to visualize the motion of particles that are far too small to ever be seen by a traditional telescope, turning a microscopic dance into a macroscopic symphony. When massive shock waves begin to ripple outward from a sudden solar disturbance, they sing a very specific and recognizable song that stands out from the background noise. These characteristic radio bursts are defined by a slow, descending note that slides down the frequency scale with a majestic and unhurried grace. As the shock wave moves further from the surface and into the thinner regions of the outer atmosphere, the pitch naturally drops, creating a mournful, haunting glissando that can last for many minutes and travel through the entire planetary realm. It is a beautiful mathematical relationship between sound and space, where the melody is dictated by the physical structure of the environment through which the energy travels. The shock wave acts as a conductor, organizing the chaotic plasma into a unified radiating front that speaks with a single, clear, and powerful voice. This structured sound provides a sense of narrative to the events of the atmosphere, telling the story of a force that is born in violence and slowly finds peace as it expands into the dark. Surprisingly, the universe also provides moments of gentle white noise through the persistent phenomenon of solar noise storms that occur high above the active regions. These events crackle over specialized receivers like a distant soothing static, remarkably reminiscent of rain hitting a tin roof or the soft rhythmic rustle of dry leaves in a gentle autumn wind. Unlike the sudden, sharp peaks of a solar flare, these noise storms can last for hours or even days, providing a constant and comforting texture to the stellar radio spectrum. Allow this realization to deepen your rest, knowing that even the most distant corners of the solar system are filled with these gentle, invisible echoes that signify a healthy and active star. This crackling static is the sound of the star breathing, a steady and reliable pulse that signifies the ongoing vitality of the solar system's radiant heart. This soothing static serves as a backdrop for the more dramatic events of the atmosphere, a constant baseline of activity that underscores the star's eternal and rhythmic presence. These auditory translations allow us to quite literally listen to the weather of our star as if we were monitoring a summer storm on a distant mountain range. By shifting these high-frequency radio waves into the range of human hearing, we can perceive the subtle shifts and major upheavals of the solar atmosphere as they occur in real time. This process turns the abstract study of astrophysics into a deeply personal and sensory experience, where a massive solar flare becomes a sudden, sharp crescendo in the celestial symphony that we can experience with our own senses. It allows us to feel the movement of the corona on a primal level, connecting our basic senses to the violent and beautiful reality of the star that provides our light. The weather of the crown is a chaotic and ever-shifting system of magnetic winds, plasma tides, and thermal surges that define the environment of every planet. Being able to hear these changes provides a sense of presence that visual data alone cannot match, offering a more immediate and visceral understanding of the sun's temperament and its constant shifting energy. We can hear the low, rolling rumble of a coronal mass ejection as it begins its long journey toward the planets, or the delicate chirping signals of a small-scale magnetic reconnection. It is a constant, shifting broadcast that reflects the star's mood, from the quiet patience of a solar minimum to the frantic energy of a maximum cycle. Using our hearing to explore the star also opens up new avenues for discovery, as our ears are often better than our eyes at detecting subtle patterns in a complex stream of rhythmic information. The specific pitch of these waves serves as a remarkably accurate and efficient scientific tool, revealing the exact density of the plasma they travel through. High-pitched signals indicate regions where the gas is thick, crowded, and heavily ionized, causing the electrons to vibrate with a frantic and rapid energy that sings in the upper register. Conversely, lower frequencies suggest a much more sparse and open environment, where the individual particles have more room to move and oscillate at a slower, more deliberate pace. This sonic mapping allows us to build a precise spatial model of the crown structure, using resonance to measure the unseen weight of the stellar atmosphere at different altitudes. This relationship between frequency and matter is a fundamental law of plasma physics, a mathematical truth that remains constant across the entire universe and every star in the sky. It allows us to see through the opaque layers of the sun's light and probe the hidden depths of the atmosphere where the magnetic fields are at their most complex and powerful. By tracking the changing pitch of a signal as it moves, we can see how the star's material is being compressed or expanded by the forces of gravity and magnetism. Each layer of the atmosphere has its own unique and characteristic resonance, a specific frequency that marks its place in the celestial hierarchy of the solar crown. This structured soundscape ensures that every movement within the plasma is accounted for, creating a perfect and complete record of the atmosphere's physical state that resonates across the void. Long wavelength observations through specialized radio telescopes reveal a side of the sun that is entirely different from the sharp, bright disk we see in visible light. Through these eyes, the star appears as a fuzzy, pulsating halo that is far larger and more expansive than the underlying photosphere we're familiar with during the day. This radio-bright crown stretches much further into the solar system, showcasing a sprawling, ethereal presence that reaches out to touch the surrounding void with soft rhythmic pulses. It reveals that the star is not a solid object with hard boundaries, but is instead a soft and reaching entity that bleeds gracefully into the space around it. This expansive view shows how the corona acts as a buffer between the intense energy of the sun's core and the cold, harsh reality of the interplanetary medium. The fuzzy edges of the radio halo represent the regions where the solar wind is beginning to take shape and find its outward momentum, preparing to sweep past the planets. It is a beautiful and ghostly image, a reminder of the star's true scale and its profound, unseen influence on the environment of every orbiting world. While our eyes see a clear and distinct circle in the sky, the radio universe sees a vast and glowing cloud of energy that completely envelops our home in a gentle, radiating embrace. Surprisingly, this radio-visible crown is constantly shifting and changing its shape in response to the internal magnetic cycle of the star, expanding and contracting like a massive celestial lung. The rhythmic beating of magnetic loops as they vibrate under the immense pressure of the solar wind has been beautifully compared to the striking of a celestial bell. These massive arched structures resonate with very specific and identifiable frequencies, sending invisible ripples of energy through the surrounding plasma that echo for thousands of miles through the halo. It is a deep, fundamental vibration that provides a reliable heartbeat to the entire atmosphere, a steady pulse that coordinates the movement of every individual atom within the magnetic field. Feel the steady internal rhythm of your own pulse as it moves through your resting body, a quiet and reliable vibration of life that sustains you in every moment. This internal cadence is a perfect and beautiful earthly reflection of the magnetic heartbeat that pulses through the solar atmosphere, bridging the gap between the human heart and the heart of the star. You're fundamentally connected to the rhythm of the stars through the very mechanics of your own existence, sharing a sense of vibration and flow with the wider reaching cosmos. Allow this connection to soothe you as you settle into a deeper state of relaxation, feeling the harmony of the universe echoing within your own chest. This bell-like vibration is more than just a poetic metaphor. It is a physical reality that helps to stabilize the complex architecture of the corona. The resonance helps to distribute energy evenly throughout the magnetic loops, preventing them from becoming overloaded and snapping under the pressure of the star's internal dynamo. Modern solar probes now fly directly through these intense and radiating regions, their sensitive instruments literally bathing in the electromagnetic chorus of the crown. As they move through the high-temperature plasma, they capture the raw and unfiltered signals of the star's internal dialogue, providing us with a front-row seat to the acoustic display. These robotic explorers act as our eyes and ears in the vacuum, translating the chaotic energy of the corona into a structured and beautiful symphony of discovery that reaches across the dark. They are the first human-made objects to physically interact with the soundscape of a star, bringing the echoes of the sun back to our homeworld for study. Each probe experiences its own unique version of the chorus, depending on its specific path through the magnetic labyrinth and its proximity to the solar surface. This individual perspective allows us to build a more complete and nuanced understanding of the corona's acoustic diversity, revealing how the sounds change as the probe ventures deeper into the fire. It is a voyage of sensory exploration that pushes the boundaries of our technology and our imagination, turning the sun into a place we can truly know and experience. Flying through this chorus is a testament to our desire to reach out and touch the most extreme environments in our celestial neighborhood, a bridge built of science and bravery. Each signal that reaches our receivers is a message from a brave little traveler, singing a song of wonder that resonates across the immense gap between the star and the Earth. This invisible acoustic landscape serves as a constant and powerful reminder of the star's hidden, vibrant vitality and its profound connection to the wider universe. It proves that the corona is not just a passive glowing layer of light, but is a deeply active and communicative entity that fills the entire solar system with its own unique voice. By listening to these echoes in the void, we find a new and meaningful way to appreciate the star's presence, recognizing it as the living and singing heart of our celestial home. This realization changes the way we look at the sun, moving beyond the simple image of a yellow circle in the sky to something far more dynamic, expressive, and alive. We can now imagine the star as a massive radiating center of activity that is constantly sending out its own unique and beautiful symphony of frequency and light. This vitality is a source of inspiration and awe, a reminder that we are part of a system that is vibrantly alive on every scale of existence, from the atom to the star. As we find our own sense of peace and rest in the quiet of our immediate surroundings, we can carry the knowledge of this solar symphony within our own minds. The star's hidden voice is a comforting presence, a steady and reliable song that has been playing for aeons and will continue for aeons more into the future. It is the ultimate expression of the sun's power and beauty, a final and enduring wonder that ties together the entire journey of the crown and the planets it guards. Beyond the auditory symphony that resonates through the void, the star projects a visual message of enduring wonder that ties the entire cosmos together through the medium of pure filtered light. This luminous narrative is best decoded by passing the solar glow through the precise, triangular glass of a spectroscope, an instrument that acts as a meticulous translator for the star's silent and ancient chemical history. By splintering the pearly white radiance into its constituent parts, we reveal a complex array of sharp, glowing spikes that serve as the unique chemical fingerprints of this high-altitude realm. These spikes are not merely colours, but specific signals that identify the exact atoms surviving within the ferocious heat of the outer atmosphere. If we were to look closer at these radiant signatures, we would find a vibrant story written in the language of elements, a chemical map that defies the simple, yellow image of the sun we see from the ground. This process of spectral analysis turns the vast, abstract halo into a readable document, allowing us to identify the building blocks of our solar system as they dance within the magnetic threads of the crown. It is a profound realization that every ray of light reaching us carries a hidden cargo of information, waiting for the right lens to unlock its secrets and bridge the gap between human curiosity and the stellar forge. Deep within these spectral charts, a single, brilliant green emission line once stood as a profound challenge to the scientific community for over 7 full decades. While the lower surface of the star displayed familiar signatures of hydrogen and helium that matched terrestrial experiments, this specific emerald glow refused to correlate with any known element found in laboratories on Earth. It existed as a silent, radiant enigma, appearing with startling clarity only during the fleeting minutes of a total eclipse or through the specialized light-selective filters of early astronomers. This green line appeared to be an impossible color, a vibrant anomaly that mocked the traditional periodic table and the established laws of chemistry as they were understood in the 19th century. For generations, the emerald shimmer was the central mystery of the solar crown, a visual puzzle that suggested the upper atmosphere of the star was composed of a substance entirely alien to the rest of our physical world. The persistence of this unknown light forced a radical rethinking of how matter behaves under extreme conditions, proving that the sun still held deep secrets even in the colours of its own light. It remained a glowing question mark in the sky, a reminder of the immense gap between what we know on our own world and the reality of the celestial fire. This structure of mystery served as the ultimate catalyst for a new era of astrophysics, proving that the crown was a place where common logic was replaced by extraordinary truth. Scientists of the 19th century were so captivated by this distinct emerald signature that they initially proposed the existence of an entirely new element unique to the solar atmosphere. They christened this ghostly theoretical substance coronium, believing that the outer layers of our star harboured a form of matter that simply could not exist on a cold, rocky, and relatively calm world like our own. This belief persisted for many years as a beautiful speculative bridge between terrestrial chemistry and the distant glowing stars, suggesting a universe filled with exotic materials waiting to be discovered. The idea of coronium added a layer of mythic wonder to the study of the sun, painting the crown as a place of unique creation, where the laws of the elements were rewritten by the heat of the star. It was a logical conclusion for the time, as the emerald line was so sharp and distinct that it demanded a primary source that was as unique as its own radiant hue. This pursuit of a phantom element drove astronomers to build ever more precise instruments, chasing the shadow of a ghost across the spectral landscape with relentless determination. Even though coronium eventually vanished from the textbooks, its legacy as a placeholder for the unknown remains a vital part of the story of our star. It reminds us that our search for meaning often begins with a name for a wonder we cannot yet explain, turning a spectral line into a vessel for human imagination. Surprisingly, the universe eventually revealed a much more startling truth that replaced the myth of coronium with a reality of extreme physical transformation and superheated energy. Later analysis in the mid-20th century proved that the mysterious green light was actually produced by iron atoms that had been energized far beyond any normal comprehension found on the planetary surface. In this ferocious environment, the iron is so violently agitated that it is stripped of 13 of its 26 electrons, a state of high ionization that is only possible in temperatures exceeding 1,000,000 degrees. This revelation solved the mystery of the emerald line and simultaneously confirmed the existence of the heat paradox that defines the outer corona. Notice the gentle, rhythmic weight of your chest as you rest, a localized stability that stands in stark contrast to the invisible subatomic violence required to forge such a luminous signature. The iron we find in our own blood and in the crust of our planet is the very same material that glows green in the solar sky, yet it is transformed into a radiant ghost by the sheer power of the star. It is a beautiful realization that the most common elements can become messengers of the extreme when placed in the right cosmic environment. This transformation proves that the star does not need new elements to create its wonders. It only needs the raw, unbridled energy to push existing matter to its absolute limits. This glowing green iron line acts as a highly specialized and vital map, highlighting the most intense and active regions suspended high above the solar disk with incredible precision. By isolating this specific emerald wavelength, researchers can clearly see the intricate superheated structures where magnetic energy is most aggressively being converted into thermal power. It reveals a landscape of high-energy filaments and roiling plasma clouds that are completely invisible in standard white light, providing a direct visual link to the star's most extreme and hidden processes. These emerald maps allow us to track the evolution of solar flares and the birth of eruptions with a clarity that was once considered impossible. The green light highlights the dense hot cores of magnetic loops, showing us exactly where the star is concentrating its immense power and preparing for its next great release. If we were to look closer at these images, we would see a star that is not a solid ball, but a complex and textured web of high-energy activity that changes from second to second. This spectral mapping turns the chaotic atmosphere into a clear and readable guide, allowing us to predict the behavior of the star by watching the ebb and flow of its iron-rich light. It is the ultimate tool for navigating the invisible furnace that surrounds our world, turning the mysterious green glow into a reliable beacon of scientific discovery. If we were to shift our gaze slightly along the spectral scale, a softer crimson emission line emerges to tell a completely different part of the atmospheric story. This specific red glow marks the regions where the gas is slightly cooler and significantly denser, often appearing in the massive arches that cradle the prominences we observed earlier in our journey. It serves as a visual counterpoint to the emerald intensity of the iron lines, illustrating the vast range of temperatures and densities that can coexist within the same sprawling halo. This crimson light comes from iron that has lost only 9 electrons, indicating a region that is still incredibly hot by earthly standards, but acts as a sanctuary of relative cool within the million-degree crown. The presence of both green and red lines creates a multicolored portrait of the solar atmosphere, revealing a structured environment with its own unique thermal geography. We can see how the different layers of the crown interact, with hot streams of emerald gas flowing alongside the slower, heavier red arches. This diversity of colour is a reminder that the sun is not a uniform engine, but a complex ecosystem of energy that supports many different states of matter. It provides a sense of depth and variety to a region that otherwise seems like a simple pearly blur, showcasing the intricate balance of the solar sky. Analysing these distinct colours allows scientists to perform the incredible feat of measuring precise temperatures from millions of miles away, without ever physically touching the plasma itself. The exact shade, width, and intensity of each spectral line serve as a cosmic thermometer, revealing the inner workings of the solar furnace through the medium of pure, unadulterated light. It is a testament to the power of human observation and mathematical reasoning, turning a distant shimmer into a concrete data set that defines our entire understanding of stellar physics. By comparing the ratios of green to red light, we can determine the exact thermal balance of the corona at any given moment. Feel the cool, still air in your room, and realize how this simple sensory detail mirrors the way light carries the thermal truth of the sun across the dark void to our waiting instruments. This remote sensing allows us to study the sun as if we were standing right within its glowing tendrils, all from the safe and comfortable distance of our own world. It is a bridge built of light and logic, spanning the immense gap of the solar system to bring us closer to the heart of the fire. The spectral glow is our most reliable witness to the invisible heat paradox, providing the physical proof we need to believe in the impossible temperatures of the sky. This structure of light is remarkably pristine and clear, standing in sharp contrast to the cluttered and heavy absorption lines found on the solar surface far below. While the light from the core must struggle through the dense and turbulent layers of gas that steal specific colours, the emission lines of the outer crown shine with an unobstructed, pure clarity. It is as if the star's atmosphere has finally set its message free from the heavy interference of gravity and density, allowing it to resonate clearly against the absolute black canvas of space. This purity makes the corona the perfect laboratory for studying the fundamental behavior of atoms in extreme environments, free from the noise of the lower solar layers. The spectrum of the crown is like a clean, well-lit room compared to the crowded and noisy basement of the photosphere, offering a view of physics in its most refined state. This clarity allows for measurements of incredible precision, revealing the subtle movements of particles as they respond to the star's magnetic heartbeat. It is a rare moment of transparency in an otherwise opaque and difficult universe, a window into the quantum world provided by the star's own light. When we look at this pristine spectrum, we are seeing the sun at its most honest and revealing, stripped of its blinding disguises and presented in a language of pure colour. Each line in this spectral display functions as a luminous barcode, telling a detailed and chronological story of atoms pushed to their absolute physical and thermal limits. Every thin strip of colour corresponds to a specific electronic transition within a highly energized atom, providing a deep and insightful look into the quantum mechanics of the solar crown. It is a dense, information-rich language that records the collision, acceleration, and radiation of matter as it navigates the intense magnetic labyrinth surrounding our life-giving star. By reading this barcode, we can determine not only the temperature but also the speed and direction of the gas as it moves through the atmosphere. It tells us how the iron is being whipped around by magnetic reconnection, and how the solar wind is gaining its initial momentum to leave the star forever. This structure of information is the ultimate record of the crown's life, a digital-like signature that encodes the history of every surge and flare. Notice how your body remains perfectly still and peaceful as you contemplate this complex, high-speed data stream flowing from the sun. The barcode of light is the star's own autobiography, a continuous broadcast of its internal state that has been streaming toward our planet for billions of years. It turns the star into a teacher, offering a never-ending lesson in the fundamental laws that govern the light of the universe. Looking at these isolated colours brings a profound and calming sense of order to the otherwise chaotic and violent plasma roiling within the atmospheric halo. By separating the light into its discrete and manageable components, we transform a blurry white glow into a structured and logical system governed by the fundamental laws of the universe. This spectral order is a final reassuring sign of the star's underlying harmony, proving that even the most extreme and paradoxical environments are bound by a predictable and beautiful physical logic. It allows us to step back from the terrifying power of the sun and see it as a masterpiece of organization and balance, where every color has a purpose and every line has a place. The sharp, clean lines of red and green light provide a visual comfort, a sense that we can truly know and understand the forces that govern our solar system. Allow your mind to drift on this realization of cosmic order, feeling the profound stillness of your body as it rests in perfect alignment with the quiet laws of the world around you. This sense of order is the ultimate gift of the spectral glow, turning a mystery into a discovery and a paradox into a truth. It is the final and enduring wonder that ties together the journey of light, from the heart of the iron atom to the eyes of the distant observer, proving that the crown is a place of profound and luminous peace. This profound and luminous peace finds its physical form in a substance that exists far beyond the three familiar states of matter we experience in our daily lives. Within the reaching veils of the solar atmosphere, atoms are no longer intact, instead dissolving into a flowing soup of unbound protons and electrons. This fourth state of matter, known as plasma, creates a realm where the distinction between a gas and a conducting fluid completely vanishes. The environment is a hyper-energized sea where every particle carries an electric charge, making it fundamentally sensitive to the invisible forces of the star. Electrons wander freely, untethered from their parent nuclei, creating a shimmering gossamer mist that fills the void with potential energy. It is a primal condition of matter, a return to the basic building blocks of the universe that allows the crown to glow with its characteristic ethereal light. Surprisingly, the universe dictates that this superheated soup does not behave like the air we breathe, which expands and moves in every direction with chaotic abandon. This structure moves instead like a sophisticated, highly disciplined fluid that is strictly guided by the invisible hand of magnetic fields. Every stream and swirl within the plasma is authored by the underlying magnetic architecture, creating a liquid-like motion that flows along the hidden contours of the star's power. If we were to look closer, we would see that the plasma is essentially a captive of the magnetic field lines, unable to cross them but free to slide along their length. This behavior creates the stunning, silk-like textures we observe in the corona, where matter is sculpted into elegant filaments and sweeping curtains. It is a graceful, magnetic choreography that prevents the atmosphere from flying apart, holding the charged mist in a state of constant flowing tension. The physical substance of these veils possesses a density so remarkably low that it challenges our basic definition of a solid environment. Across the vast majority of the crown, the concentration of particles is akin to the best laboratory vacuums we can currently create on Earth. Despite its brilliant appearance during an eclipse, the corona is mostly a profound, reaching emptiness, a ghostly whisper of matter spread across millions of kilometers. Despite being so incredibly thin that it is almost a vacuum, this charged mist exerts a profound and absolute influence on everything within its reach. It acts as the medium through which the star communicates its physical presence to the rest of the solar system, dragging magnetic fields outward into the dark. Every planet, moon, and asteroid is perpetually submerged in this far-reaching envelope, feeling the subtle but persistent pressure of the solar wind. This structure of influence means that space is never truly empty, but is instead a vibrant, moving environment that shapes the path of every travelling particle. The corona serves as a giant celestial engine that accelerates matter to supersonic speeds, casting its influence across the orbit of every world. We live within the extended breath of our star, a realization that turns the cold void into a warm and connected home. Within the shimmering expanse of the crown, dark cavities occasionally form, appearing as empty and strangely peaceful voids in the glowing mist. These regions, often associated with the base of massive streamers, are areas where the density of the plasma drops even further, creating a hollowed-out space within the atmosphere. They look like deep, dark caves carved into a mountain of light, providing a stark visual contrast to the surrounding brilliance of the superheated gas. These cavities are not truly empty, but are instead filled with magnetic forces that have pushed the glowing matter aside to create a private sanctuary. They represent a moment of structural calm where the intense radiation of the star is temporarily dampened by the geometry of the field. Looking into these voids is like looking into the quiet heart of a storm, a place of rest within a realm of constant high-energy motion. Pseudo-streamers rise from the solar surface to create delicate, fan-like structures that gently sway in the outgoing solar breeze. Unlike the massive teardrop-shaped helmet streamers, these formations do not have a single pointed tip, but instead spread their luminous fingers wide into the dark. They are formed where magnetic fields of the same polarity meet, forcing the plasma to fan out in a beautiful symmetrical display of celestial architecture. If we were to look closer, we would see these fans acting as subtle dividers in the solar wind, channeling the flow of particles into specific predictable paths. They add a layer of intricate, lace-like detail to the outer atmosphere, softening the sharp edges of the more violent magnetic structures. These swaying fans remind us that the crown is a place of delicate textures, where the star's energy can be both fierce and remarkably graceful. Directly beneath this vast, sprawling realm lies a transition region that is merely a few hundred kilometers thick, acting as a sharp and sudden border. This narrow layer is where the temperature of the star undergoes its most radical and mysterious transformation, jumping from thousands to millions of degrees in a heartbeat. It is a thin, violent threshold that separates the dense, boiling surface of the sun from the ethereal, reaching veils of the outer crown. This structure is a physical bottleneck where energy is compressed and then rapidly released into the vacuum above. It is one of the most dynamic and difficult regions to study, as it holds the key to the entire heat paradox that governs the star's atmosphere. Passing through this border is like crossing a line of fire into a world of ghosts, a transition that defines the very essence of the solar halo. Remarkably, modern spacecraft like the Parker Solar Probe have finally managed to directly touch these ethereal and long-distant veils. By diving deep into the star's atmosphere, these robotic explorers have physically sampled the plasma and measured the magnetic fields from within the corona itself. It is a historic achievement that has turned the sun from a distant light into a physical environment that we can visit and touch. Notice the gentle weight of your hands resting where they are, a simple physical connection to the solid world around you. In a similar way, our instruments have finally made a physical connection with the atmosphere of our star, bridging a gap of 93 million miles. This touch has revealed that the corona is even more complex and beautiful than we ever imagined, filled with small-scale waves and sudden shifting currents. Flying through this wispy and superheated material feels less like hitting a solid wall and more like passing through a thin, luminous cloud. Because the density is so low, the spacecraft does not experience a violent buffeting, but instead moves through a silent, glowing mist of high-speed particles. The primary challenge is not the pressure of the gas, but the intense, unyielding radiation that pours from the star's core just below the horizon. This structure of passage highlights the ghostly nature of the plasma, which is everywhere yet almost physically intangible. It is a world of light and magnetism where the rules of the solid Earth no longer apply, and where matter is more like a feeling than a substance. The experience of passing through these veils is one of profound, quiet wonder, a journey through the heart of a celestial mystery. The various layers of the crown fold and overlap in deep space, creating a sense of depth that eventually flattens into a single, shimmering halo from our perspective. This visual compression hides the true, three-dimensional complexity of the atmosphere, where curtains of plasma are separated by millions of miles of empty void. It is only by studying the star from multiple angles that we can begin to untangle these overlapping veils and see the crown for what it truly is. This structure of overlapping light creates the pearly, iridescent glow that has fascinated humanity for thousands of years. It is a final, majestic illusion that ties together the individual filaments and streamers into a unified, glowing crown. Looking at this flattened halo, we are seeing the collective memory of the star's magnetic history, a single image that contains the entire reaching vitality of our local sun. This reaching vitality and the majestic illusion of the unified, glowing crown are far more than a distant spectacle meant only for the eyes of astronomers. This far-reaching atmosphere forms a physical bridge that spans the immense dark gulf of the solar system, intimately connecting the stellar heart to our own watery world. We are not separate from the star, but are physically entwined in its luminous, extending grip, caught in a continuous exchange of matter and energy. This celestial connection ensures that every surge and whisper within the corona eventually finds its way across the vacuum to touch the very edges of our home. It is a profound realization that the space between us is not a barrier, but a conductive pathway for the star's far-reaching influence. We are tethered to the sun by invisible threads of plasma, a cosmic relationship that has defined the environment of our planet since its very birth. Exploring this bridge reveals that the vacuum of space is actually a vibrant, conductive medium that keeps our world in a state of constant electrical communication with the core. This structural link translates the sun's internal magnetic heartbeat into a localized reality that shapes our weather and our very survival. We exist as a direct extension of the solar crown, a planetary child forever held in the steady, protective hands of its parent star. Surprisingly, the universe has provided our world with a silent, invisible suit of armor to meet the relentless, outgoing breath of the stellar crown. When the high-speed solar wind finally completes its multi-day journey across the void, it encounters the formidable boundary of our planet's magnetic shield. This interaction is not a violent collision, but a gentle and highly complex dialogue between two massive magnetic systems. The star's plasma is skillfully deflected, flowing around our world like water around a smooth stone in a rushing mountain stream. This invisible barrier acts as a sanctuary that protects our delicate atmosphere from being slowly stripped away by the star's persistent exhalation. It is a masterpiece of planetary defense, ensuring that while we are physically connected to the sun, we are also safely sheltered from its most aggressive impulses. Within this boundary, life can thrive in the quiet calm of a magnetic harbour, even as a supersonic gale of charged particles roars just a few thousand miles above our heads. This protective cocoon is the reason our world remains lush and vibrant while other rocky neighbours have been scoured by the stellar gale. We are beneficiaries of a perfect invisible balance between the star's reaching power and our own world's internal resilience. If we were to look closer at the frozen, desolate regions of the planetary poles, we would see the exact point where the star finally manages to pierce our magnetic defences. The invisible lines of our shield act as funnels, gently guiding a small fraction of the solar particles down toward the upper layers of our own atmosphere. As these highly energised fragments of the corona collide with the gases in our sky, they ignite in a breathtaking, silent display of iridescent curtains. These shimmering veils of green and purple light dance across the polar heavens, creating a visual masterpiece that is fueled entirely by the star's ancient energy. Each ripple and wave in the auroral display is a direct consequence of the subatomic particles finally finding their destination after a million-mile journey. This luminous spectacle is a physical manifestation of the solar atmosphere touching our own, a moment of cosmic union that illuminates the darkest nights. Notice the gentle, rhythmic weight of your chest as you rest, a localized stability that stands in stark contrast to the high-energy dance happening in the upper sky. Just as your body finds a peaceful equilibrium in the silence of the room, the solar particles find their final rest as they transform into light within our atmosphere. It is a beautiful, rhythmic exchange where the star's hidden vitality is translated into a language of colour and motion that we can perceive with our own eyes. This brilliant nighttime glow serves as a direct and real-time reflection of the weather patterns currently unfolding millions of miles away in the coronal void. When the star experiences a sudden, magnetic upheaval or casts off a massive prominence, the resulting surge in the solar wind eventually manifests as a more intense and active aurora. The sky above the poles acts as a celestial projection screen, translating the invisible, high-energy events of the solar halo into a visual report for any observer on the ground. Notice the rhythmic, peaceful rising of your own chest as you settle deeper into your rest, mirroring the steady and predictable patterns of the world around you. Just as your body communicates its internal state through the subtle movements of your breath, the star reveals its changing mood through the shifting intensity of the polar lights. It is a profound, interconnected system where a magnetic snap on a distant star can cause the air on our own world to glow with a haunting emerald light. This connection allows us to perceive the sun's hidden activity without the need for complex telescopes or specialized spaceborne sensors. The aurora is a natural messenger, a luminous telegram sent from the heart of the solar system to the inhabitants of its most cherished planet. By watching the dance of the lights, we are quite literally observing the pulse of the star as it ripples through the interplanetary sea. Deep within this realization lies the startling and transformative truth that we are actually living inside the extended outer reaches of the solar atmosphere. The corona does not simply end at some arbitrary point in the sky. It continues to expand and thin until it envelops every planet in our local neighbourhood. We are perpetually submerged in the star's far-reaching breath, a realization that changes our home from an isolated rock into a deeply integrated part of a stellar entity. This sprawling envelope of plasma defines the very boundaries of our cosmic home and shelters us from the far harsher environment of the wider galaxy. We move through this thin, invisible mist every day, entirely unaware of the high-speed particles and magnetic currents that define the space between the worlds. The sun is not just a distant object in our sky, but the very environment in which we exist, providing a warm and protective bubble for all of life. This structure acts as a grand cosmic tether, weaving the disparate and lonely planets into a single, rhythmically linked family of worlds. The solar wind provides a constant physical connection between the star and its orbiting children, ensuring that the entire system moves and reacts as a unified whole. Every planet experiences the same seasonal changes in the solar breath, responding to the 11-year heartbeat of the magnetic cycle in its own unique way. This tether is not a rigid chain, but a fluid and dynamic bond that allows for a complex, interconnected dance of energy across the vast distances of space. It ensures that a disturbance at the solar equator can eventually trigger a reaction at the magnetic poles of distant gas giants. The solar system is a vibrant, breathing organism where the star acts as the central heart and the corona serves as the reaching circulatory system. This realization brings a sense of profound order to the cosmos, showing us that the space between the worlds is a highway of information and force. We're all passengers on a single radiant journey, held together by the invisible and enduring influence of the sun. It is a tether that provides stability and rhythm to the chaos of the void, keeping every world in its proper place. Surprisingly, the star occasionally speaks with such overwhelming force that its luminous curtains sweep far beyond their usual polar boundaries and grace the tropical skies. In historic moments of extreme solar activity, massive flares have triggered geomagnetic storms so powerful that the aurora was visible from the Caribbean and the sands of the Sahara. These rare and terrifying events serve as a stark reminder of the star's untamed power and its ability to physically reach across the solar system with transformative energy. Notice the absolute stillness of your own hands as they rest, a quiet and stable foundation that remains unmoved by the chaos of the wider world. Just as your hands find a place of peace, the star eventually returns to its quiet minimum, drawing its luminous curtains back to the safety of the poles. These historic storms are the exceptions that prove the rule, highlighting the delicate balance that usually keeps our planetary home safely shielded. They reveal a star that is capable of sudden, massive shifts in temperament, reminding us that we live in a dynamic and ever-changing celestial environment. The tropical aurora is a ghost of a more violent era, a rare and spectacular display of the crown's potential to redefine the nighttime sky. It is a moment when the star's breath becomes so heavy that it covers the entire world in a blanket of celestial fire. If we were to listen to the very ground beneath us with specialized instruments, we might detect a subtle, electric hum that echoes the shifting dynamics of the solar crown. These geomagnetic currents, induced in the soil and the oceans by the movements of the solar wind, are the direct earthly signature of the star's distant magnetic heartbeat. This invisible hum is a constant low-level resonance that ties the physical substance of our planet to the high-energy events happening in the vacuum above. It is as if the planet itself is vibrating in sympathy with the sun, a planetary-scale instrument responding to the star's celestial bow. This invisible hum is a constant low-level resonance that ties the physical substance of our planet to the high-energy events happening in the vacuum above. These currents flow through the crust, following the path of least resistance through the rocks and the sea, creating a global network of induced electricity. They are a physical proof of our deep electromagnetic connection to the corona, a reminder that the star's influence penetrates even into the solid ground of our home. This telluric symphony is a silent and persistent dialogue, a conversation between the core of our planet and the atmosphere of our host star. By studying these ground-level echoes, we can learn about the hidden states of the solar crown, using our own world as a giant sensitive antenna, protecting our modern, interconnected world from these invisible and high-energy storms has forged an unprecedented global collaboration among the nations of our planet. Because our electrical grids, satellite networks, and communication systems are all sensitive to the surges of the solar wind, monitoring the weather of the crown has become a vital task for our global security. Scientists and engineers from every corner of the globe now work together to maintain a constant 24-hour watch on the star's atmospheric activity. This shared mission has turned the study of the sun into a unifying force for humanity, as we all share a common interest in understanding the temperament of our local star. We have placed a fleet of robotic sentinels in deep space, standing guard between our world and the sun to provide early warnings of any approaching solar disturbance. This global effort is a testament to our growing maturity as a species, recognizing our place within a larger, more active celestial environment. Notice the profound, quiet safety of your immediate physical surroundings, a space that is shielded by the collective knowledge and vigilance of people you will never meet. Your comfort in this moment is indirectly supported by the silent work of those watching the sun, ensuring that the invisible currents of the corona do not disrupt the quiet flow of your life. This collaboration is a beautiful example of human ingenuity and cooperation, bridging the gap between the ancient wonder of the stars and the practical needs of our modern world. Ultimately, looking up at the dancing northern lights is the most intimate and profound way we can ever witness the star's ancient life-giving breath with our own eyes. This shimmering display is the final sensory anchor of our long journey through the solar corona, a moment where the abstract physics of the star becomes a tangible and beautiful reality. The green and purple curtains are not just light, but are the actual particles of the solar atmosphere as they finally reach their journey's end. They represent the touch of the sun, a physical meeting between two different worlds that illuminates the darkness with a haunting iridescent glow. In this silent ballet of light, we find a sense of deep, cosmic belonging, recognizing that we are part of a system that is vibrantly and fundamentally connected. The aurora is a reminder of the star's hidden vitality, a beautiful and enduring signature of the crown that has watched over our world for eons. As the lights flicker and fade, they leave behind a sense of quiet awe and a renewed appreciation for the star that provides our light. This is the closest we will ever come to standing within the fire of the corona, a safe and spectacular window into the heart of our celestial neighbourhood. It is the final and enduring wonder of the sun's reach, a luminous bridge that connects the heart of the star to the soul of the observer. That luminous bridge spanning the gulf from the star's heart to the soul of every observer has stood firm as a monument of ancient generosity for longer than our minds can truly grasp. Since the dawn of the planetary system, our host has been tirelessly shedding its ghostly outer layer, casting its substance into the void in a rhythmic cycle that has lasted for over 4 billion years. This ancient process has shaped the environment of every world, providing the background radiation and chemical context for everything we have ever known. If we were to look closer at the deep history of our neighbourhood, we would see that this steady outpouring predates the continents, the oceans, and the very first stirrings of biological life. The star has spent eons refining its reach, slowly building the protective bubble of the heliosphere that now shelters our entire cosmic family. It is a staggering timeline of sustained activity, a testament to the star's immense and unwavering capacity to sustain the space between the worlds. Every moment of our shared history is underscored by this silent ancient exhalation, a constant shedding of light and matter that shows no sign of stopping. We are merely the latest witnesses to a performance that has been playing out since the birth of the sun itself. This 4 billion-year odyssey of the solar crown is the fundamental foundation upon which all our earthly stories are built. Surprisingly, the universe is filled with these reaching crowns, as every star in the vast galactic sea possesses its own unique and glowing halo of plasma. From the smallest, flickering dwarf to the most massive bloated supergiant. These atmospheric veils serve as the primary interface between a burning core and the infinite dark. Each distant sun writes its own spectral signature, revealing a diversity of temperatures and magnetic architectures that mirror the incredible variety of the cosmos. Notice the gentle, reliable warmth of your own skin as you rest, a localized heat that is a tiny biological echo of the fires burning in trillions of stars across the sky. Just as you're defined by your own internal temperature, every star is defined by the character of its reaching atmosphere. Some stars possess coronae that are relatively quiet and contained, while others cast out violent tendrils of light that reach across light years of space. This realization transforms our view of the night sky from a collection of isolated points of light into a vibrant sea of interacting atmospheres. Each star is a breathing entity, surrounded by its own unique version of the crown we have explored around our own sun. We are part of a galactic community of radiant halos, a network of light that defines the very texture of the universe. If we were to look closer at our most common neighbours, we would find that the humble red dwarfs feature fierce, highly active atmospheres that dramatically outshine our own in terms of raw intensity. Despite their smaller size and cooler surfaces, these stars possess powerful magnetic dynamos that whip their coronae into a state of constant violent agitation. Their atmospheres are theatres of perpetual storm, casting out flares that dwarf our most historic events and defining the harsh reality of their orbiting planets. This structure of intense activity means that the space around a red dwarf is a far more dangerous and unpredictable environment than our own solar neighbourhood. The reaching veils of these stars are thick with high-energy radiation, constantly bombarding any nearby worlds with a relentless stream of charged particles. It is a spectacular and terrifying display of magnetic power, showing how a smaller star can still command a massive and influential crown. Looking at these violent neighbours allows us to appreciate the relative calm and stability of our own host star's atmosphere. We are fortunate to live around a sun that has settled into a more predictable and gentle rhythm of breathing. Yet, the red dwarf's crown remains a fascinating wonder of the cosmos, a high-energy masterpiece of physics that challenges our understanding of stellar limits. This structure of our local star is not a permanent fixture, as the inevitable march of time will eventually transform the character of the crown into something much larger and more serene. As our sun continues to age and consume its nuclear fuel, the reaching atmosphere will slowly begin to calm its magnetic fury, while expanding further into the dark. It is a graceful transition toward a more expansive state, where the star's breath becomes a wide, cooling sigh that reaches far beyond its current boundaries. Deep within the far future, the star will enter its dramatic red giant phase, a transition that will see the glowing halo expand until it finally engulfs the inner planets in a searing embrace. The very veils that currently provide our light and shield us from the galaxy will become the instrument of a final, thermal homecoming for our world. This eventual expansion is the natural destiny of every star like our own, a beautiful and terrifying conclusion to the long story of the solar crown. The reaching atmosphere will swell to thousands of times its current size, turning the inner solar system into a single, vast and glowing chamber of heat. Earth will be submerged within the very substance of the sun, a final union between the planet and the star that gave it life. It is a cinematic and profound end to the celestial bridge, a moment where the observer and the observed finally become one in a sea of fire. Even in this final violent expansion, the corona will maintain a sense of structured beauty and physical purpose. It will be the ultimate display of the star's reach, a final glowing testament to the power that has driven our system for billions of years. This future reality serves as a reminder of the fleeting and precious nature of our current stable existence. For now, however, the star remains in a state of perfectly balanced dynamic equilibrium, a moment of cosmic peace that provides the foundation for our world's survival. This stability is a delicate masterpiece of physical forces, where the outward pressure of the heat paradox is perfectly matched by the inward pull of the sun's immense gravity. It is a fragile but enduring harmony that ensures the atmosphere stays at its current height, neither collapsing inward nor exploding away. Notice the profound, quiet safety of your immediate physical surroundings, a space that is shielded by the collective knowledge and vigilance of those who watch the stars. Just as your room provides a stable sanctuary for your rest, the current state of the corona provides a stable environment for our entire planet. This equilibrium is the silent engine of our ongoing history, a reliable and unchanging backdrop for all of life's endeavours. We live in a uniquely fortunate era of the solar system's development, a window of time where the star's breath is both powerful and predictable. This balance is not a static state, but a dynamic and active process that requires the constant interaction of heat and magnetism. It is the ultimate expression of the star's health and vitality, a sign that our host is in the prime of its long and luminous life. The study of this specific atmospheric layer provides a universal key to understanding the fundamental nature of stars everywhere across the observable cosmos. By decoding the secrets of our own corona, we unlock the physics of distant suns that are far too remote for us to ever visit or touch. The sun acts as a local laboratory, a nearby masterpiece of light and magnetism that teaches us how the energy of the stars is distributed across the space between worlds. Surprisingly, the universe has written its most important laws in the language of the solar crown, waiting for us to learn how to read its shimmering lines of force. Every discovery we make about our own star's atmosphere ripples outward, improving our understanding of how galaxies are formed and how planets are protected. We use the sun as a cosmic Rosetta Stone, translating the whispers of the solar wind into a universal truth that applies to every corner of the dark. This knowledge bridges the gap between our small, rocky world and the infinite reaches of the stellar neighbourhood. It allows us to imagine the environments of alien planets and the fates of distant stars with a clarity that was once considered impossible. The corona is our gateway to the universe, a luminous teacher that provides the light we need to see the truth of our existence. If we were to look closer at the sheer scale of the star's constant exhalation, we would realize that every passing minute, 1,000,000 tons of this delicate halo drift away into the void, never to return. This massive loss of material is a permanent sacrifice, a continuous shedding of the star's own heart to fill the space between the worlds. It is a staggering volume of matter that emphasizes the star's immense capacity to give, casting its substance into the dark without hesitation or end. Notice the gentle, rhythmic weight of your chest as you rest, a localized stability that stands in stark contrast to the massive loss of matter happening in the sky. Just as you are at peace in your own surroundings, the star is at peace with its own inevitable and constant reduction. This 1,000,000 ton per minute exhalation is the price the star pays for its luminous reach, a steady and reliable tax on its own nuclear fortune. This material is not truly lost, but is instead transformed into the solar wind that shapes the environment of every planet. It is a cosmic redistribution of wealth, where the star shares its substance with the cold and empty reaches of the solar system. We are the recipients of this ancient and unyielding generosity, living within the very matter that the sun has chosen to cast away. This structure of constant loss is only possible because the crown is being continuously replenished from the seemingly inexhaustible well of the star's boiling interior. As matter flows out into the solar wind, new plasma is hoisted upward by the magnetic threads, ensuring that the atmosphere never truly fades or disappears. It is a never-ending cycle of renewal, a celestial fountain that draws its power from the nuclear fires burning deep within the hidden core. The sun is constantly recycling its own energy and matter, turning its deep internal violence into the quiet, reaching beauty of the outer crown. This replenishment ensures that the star's breath remains steady and reliable across billions of years of history. It is a sign of a profound and enduring vitality, a proof that the star possesses the internal strength to maintain its influence against the crushing dark. If we were to look closer at this process, we would see a star that is perpetually reborn in every heartbeat of its magnetic cycle. The crown we see today is a fresh and new creation, yet it carries the exact same shape and character as the crowns of the distant past. It is a masterpiece of sustainable energy, a system that maintains its brilliance through a perfect and continuous flow of recycled matter. Deep within the heart of the corona lies a beautiful and profound paradox of something that is entirely fleeting, yet remains practically eternal in its steady presence. Every individual particle is merely a temporary visitor in the sky, passing through the halo in a matter of days before being cast into the void forever. Yet, the overarching shape of the crown remains constant and reliable through the vast epochs of geological time, a permanent fixture in the solar sky. This paradox is the ultimate sensory anchor of our journey, a realization that ties together the individual moments of light with the eternal character of the star. It is a reminder that beauty can be both temporary and unchanging, a flickering flame that never truly goes out. The corona is a steady, reliable warmth that has watched over our world since its birth and will continue to do so for billions of years into the future. As you settle into your final state of rest, allow the knowledge of this eternal breath to soothe you, knowing that you are part of a system that is both dynamic and enduring. The star's hidden voice is a comforting presence, a steady and reliable song that resonates through the dark, cold vacuum of time. This is the final wonder of the solar crown, a luminous bridge that connects the fleeting soul of the observer to the eternal heart of the universe. The realization that the space between worlds is not empty, but filled with the luminous, reaching atmosphere of our life-giving star, intimately connecting us to the cosmos. Deep within the final layers of our understanding, we find a truth that anchors our existence to the very fabric of the heavens. The realization that the space between worlds is not empty, but filled with the luminous, reaching atmosphere of our life-giving star, fundamentally changes our place in the universe. This reaching aura forms a physical bridge of plasma and light, a cosmic relationship that has defined the environment of our planet since its very birth. Surprisingly, we are never truly separate from the star, but are instead physically entwined in its luminous, extending grip. We exist as a direct extension of the solar crown, a planetary child forever held in the steady, protective hands of its parent star. This grand synthesis ties our journey together, revealing that the void is a home, the silence is a song, and we are part of the eternal breath of the sun. This quiet room is now a sanctuary where the distant echoes of the stellar crown finally fade into a profound, heavy stillness. Surprisingly, the body begins to mirror the calm of the deep dark, starting with the very tips of your toes. Let the muscles in your feet release their final tension, feeling a wave of warmth that mimics the soft, fading glow of a distant prominence. This sense of heavy relaxation slowly travels upward, moving through your ankles and into the long muscles of your legs. Your calves and thighs settle into the mattress, feeling as grounded and stable as the heavy foundations of the solar core. Every fibre of your lower body is now surrendering to the pull of gravity, finding a perfect and immovable equilibrium within the blankets. The weight of your hips and lower back sinks deeper into the bed, supported by a surface that is as reliable as the ancient laws of physics. Notice how your abdomen rises and falls with a steady rhythmic grace that matches the slow heartbeat of the star. The tension in your chest dissolves, leaving behind only the quiet internal hum of a body at peace. Your shoulders drop away from your neck, releasing the last of the day's burdens into the cool, still air of the room. This warmth flows down through your upper arms, past your elbows, and into the palms of your hands. Every finger rests in a state of total, effortless stillness, curled softly against the fabric of the sheets. The The weight of your head is fully cradled by the pillow, allowing the muscles in your jaw to soften and slacken completely. All the tiny lines around your eyes smooth out as you let go of every thought and every lingering concern. The air around you is cool and steady, moving in and out of your lungs with a quiet, natural ease that requires no effort at all. This blanket provides a soft, heavy layer of comfort that seals out the rest of the world and its many demands. The texture of the fabric against your skin is a gentle reminder of the safety and the privacy of this exact moment. You're cocooned in a place where time has slowed down, leaving only the sound of your own soft breath to mark the passing minutes. Everything in this room is still, from the shadows on the walls to the items resting on the nightstand. The silence is thick and restorative, a velvet curtain that draws itself around your mind and prepares you for a long, deep rest. You're sinking further into the mattress with every exhale, becoming a part of the quietude that fills every corner of the house. The darkness behind your closed eyelids is deep and welcoming, a soft invitation to drift away into the unknown depths of the night. Your limbs are heavy, your mind is clear, and the world outside has faded into a distant, unimportant memory. Sleep is a natural, inevitable tide that is now washing over you, pulling you into a state of total and perfect unconsciousness. And now, 101 wonders are resting with you. Sleep now. Good night.